And we'll see if it picks up on this early, because we should be live now. But it looks like it's under the other YouTube. So we're live a little early.
Under the other YouTube.
So there's a stream now, and then there's an event stream. And I think under the event stream, YouTube wants you to stream under their software. So right now I think I'm under the stream now link. Well, I mean, there's 25 people. So in that one, tell everybody to look to see if it's under the main stream now, because it looks like it is. What's up, guys? I think it came under the other. We had like 30 people on the other thing. See if the clarity is okay.
So what do you want me to tell them?
Just tell the folks that are in that channel to come, just to go to our base YouTube, like our channel, and then they'll see that I'm live, because this event is live right now on the main channel. How's it going, guys? You guys hear me fine? We got 55 folks in right now. We're gonna let a few more come in. Excited to be back.
Is there a way to cancel the other one?
No, it'll end, and then they'll see it on the other piece there. We'll make sure the quality's going to be a lot better on
Twitch and all that.
looks and yeah, excellent. So they're saying it's good clarity too, which is good. No dropped frames, which is good. Make sure that that's over there. What's up, everybody? Excellent. You guys can hear me fine. So we're going to do a real quick video here on YouTube. And this is really to catch the YouTube audience. The last few streams we've had, it's been on Twitch. And I'm going to be trying to, get, we'll do episode content on YouTube. We'll start some of our content on YouTube also when it comes to live. And then we'll do a lot of the live streams on Twitch. I like the live streams on Twitch. Just the clarity's a lot higher. Allows us to interact with you guys better. We can moderate it better until YouTube really starts to make some changes on it. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. And that way you guys can go straight over to Twitch after this. And we'll break things down a little better or a little more detailed there. And we may even pull a machine up and do some other stuff later on. I like Twitch for the longer stream. So I'm back. It was a week. I've been gone. I wanted to go through it with you guys of pretty much everything that I covered that I can talk with you guys through, especially when it comes to the merger of cryptocurrencies. Mind you, I go to these events. Some of them are work-related. Some of them are when I'll just go out to some of the events. This one was a work-related event. However, I did have a lot of opportunity. And the discussions in cryptocurrencies come out anyways at an event like this, where a lot of the technology in general is being predicated on some of the advancements that cryptocurrencies have brought. I mean, it's an open source community, and a lot of the innovation, especially that IBM is using right now, is from open source communities. So I covered a lot of different stuff over the last few days, and what I wanted to go through is kind of on YouTube with you guys, kind of break down where I see the fusion of blockchain cryptocurrency networks and private, permissioned, public-private when it comes to control. Meaning, like, if you think of Ripple's a good example of a private functionality side, but public network. You can host a node on it. It isn't technically a consensus blockchain per se, but from a concept of understanding something that you can interact with publicly from the token side, and then have a private functionality set, and then you have permissioned private networks, which you would have to be part of a cloud in that. So we're going to cover kind of the fusion of all of these and how everything's coming together, and some of the narrative that I had talked with some of the senior engineers at IBM, and then some of the other folks and vendors there that were at this event. And you guys can see I'm rocking some new swag. Got the Falcon Heavy SpaceX hat. Still got the little SpaceX thing there, and then nice little little shirt here, little showing a little bit of SpaceX love here too. Totally fanboying out on SpaceX, and I thought it would be hilarious to wear a Skynet shirt with the SpaceX, considering that Elon's really freaked out about AI. So, and then kind of keep with the theme of what I was going to be covering from what I learned from Watson AI and machine deep learning. And kind of go through it with you guys. I did some of the actual labs to learn the development side of it. Write some code. Anybody that's been following us on Twitter saw some of the code that I was posting up there of some of the lab work that I was working through. And understand, try to understand it better. It's a private company working, or a public company working on some pretty innovative technology, and seeing that transcend it over into, the blockchain space. So, got 130 people on there. That's excellent. It's a Saturday night. It's late. We're also going to do a stream tomorrow during the day, and we'll keep that more miner focused, and we'll look at what's been going on over the last few weeks in the miner. So, can Watson mine? Yeah, technically it could. If you did some development on it, you could get pretty much anything to mine, really, honestly. But the one part that I wanted to bring up, at least in this stream, we're about 6 minutes in now, is really this discussion that I had with several of the engineers there. As we started to, I was answering as much as I could the cryptocurrency feature sets, and a lot of people, a lot of engineers that work on the Hyperledger architecture, which is an open source project that IBM has when it comes to blockchain technology. Consensus driven, not incentivized, right? So when you think cryptocurrency networks, we are upholding the network from a proof of work, and we are compensated in a token for that effort. People that do delegated proof of stake host their stake and get compensated for that. So we're participating in a network and getting a token. When you start talking privatized networks, there's not really a need for the incentive side, or at least they don't think that. And part of my mission out there was to ensure that they understand that they're missing a big opportunity cost when you start talking about connecting a whole bunch of different networks together, that there is an entire public network side. And to my surprise, the architecture, the engineers and folks that I talked to out there were very aware of the cryptocurrency network, just not as aware as some of the feature sets that were brought forth, through some of the innovation through like Monero, with the obfuscation of some of the layering, a basic understanding of smart contracts, but not a thorough understanding on the public side of the advantages of understanding that there's an entire network of folks that are holding it up. But what really came together is a good picture, and I try to do, you guys can't see this, and I'm going to change this setup to where I'm going to put a camera up here, shining down onto this, and I can pivot for you guys can get a better shot of the whiteboard, but bear with me now since I've been out of town for the week. But essentially I drew a really horrible design of the world.
They asked if it was a kidney.
If it was a kidney? No. That is the world. That's North America, that's South America, Africa, European Union, UK, Brexit, and then Russia, India, China, Australia down here. And essentially these other lines that I have kind of connected here are essentially infrastructure hard lines, right? So if you guys understand the way the world is connected when it comes to a distribution of an infrastructure, there's essentially both satellite, terrestrial systems, so that would be extraterrestrial systems, terrestrial systems, which are microwave, wireless connections, hard lines, copper, fiber, all that connection. When you start thinking of that infrastructure, I want you to take infrastructure in that context and understand cryptocurrency, when you start listening to folks talk about privatized and public network, privatized blockchains interacting with the cryptocurrency world, and their viewpoint from the distribution, the required bandwidth, the required control, when you're talking of a permissioned system, i.e., if you're going to build an innovative way to do medical records, you got HIPAA requirements, which require the public information of your medical records and stuff like that has to be obfuscated to the public, right? I mean, that's your personal information. When you start looking at folks that are trying to build distributed ledgers with that type of information, they want to have it on a private side. But there is no cost advantage really than the current existing systems out there from the cloud and all that, if they're not taking advantage at least of potentially using like something like a cryptocurrency network, of having it like the public works. So if you take Monero, Bitcoin, Litecoin, all the different distributed, decentralized cryptocurrency networks, and you contextualize those as the public works. Like if you have an internet connection at home, you pay $60 for. You run an internet business on that. If that happens to be AT&T or Charter or any of these other places, you have essentially a system where you're paying a fee, and you can then platform off that fee to build an internet business, right? It's only $60 to Charter. They're making fee off of you. You're participating on that network, and then you can build an entire infrastructure on top of that network. If you start looking at a way everything's connected, it's not going to be one chain that rules all. And that's really what it comes down to. There's going to be a multitude of chains, both private and public, that will come together to leverage each other. And the viewpoint that they were looking at from a world view, they were looking at, from a load balancing, you have F5, you have Cisco networks that hold and bridge and everything connect to each other. You have all the different cloud services available, Google, Amazon, Azure, all those cloud services. You have brick and mortar buildings with data centers that have all this, that have infinite amounts of technology in there. All of those come together to make essentially the internet and all the different technologies work together. That's the viewpoint, at least right now, from a commercial side and a business side of a connected world when it comes to cryptocurrencies and blockchain. So you have a lot of innovation right now coming across on blockchain technology, distributed ledger technology, forked and hedged off of the existing effort, that all the development that's been done on the cryptocurrency network. But understand, they know that that's at a cost. They're essentially taking these crypto networks and redistributing them on a private side, controlling what's in there, but understanding also that there's a huge advantage of using a cryptocurrency network as like a public works. For us, the miners, nothing changes in that world. If it's a proof of work system, we are essentially just the folks that are being compensated by the token to hold up that network for an entire ecosystem to evolve on top of, right? And we are incentivized based on the traffic that's part of it. In Bitcoin's case, every 10 minutes, the amount of transactions that get posted in there, right? The lightning channels that can be open, and all the bar tab style transactions that can occur within a lightning channel on, let's say, Bitcoin, or Litecoin, which has a faster block time, faster response, can pack more into it. Same thing with Monero and any of the other distributed networks. All of them facilitating a need at the end of the day, right? From, again, that whole concept of public works. What I'm trying to do is not demystify or take a hit on any of the efforts that's been applied to make things a more decentralized world. I'm trying to contextualize the realities of the situation of how many different businesses work, commerce, and also you have this entire commerce and fintech side, so the financial sector tech, which is where cryptocurrency keeps intersecting with, right? It's all about, can I invest in it? Can I speculate against the cost on it? It's all very finance driven right now, cryptocurrencies. What I'm trying to do is evolve your guys' thinking a little more. It kind of reminds me of a quote in Inception, when it's like, you got to dream a little bigger. When he's sitting there shooting like a Scar H, and the guy comes with a grenade launcher, right? This entire thing's a lot wider than what we're interpreting right now. We look at it from a very store of value. It's very linear on the transaction. It's a network-driven system, but it's more than just that. It can be a facilitator when combined with other technologies, right? So if we're talking blockchain oracles to get to reference data in centralized systems that we will make calls to, right? Because of the distribution, because of the centralization, of the decentralized piece of it, the real-time availability of information that's needed to be required at that point in time to help facilitate the essence of a transaction. That kind of stuff, when you start combining that with centralized systems that have, like, you know, private information behind firewalls, if we ever want to take that out of the firewalls and put that on a distributed, decentralized network, you know, any one of these current cryptocurrencies, if it try to bear the load of that, are not set up for it, right? There's some that are trying. You got EOS, you got other ones that have this whole concept of decentralized applications with lots of storage. We see it with DTube and the IPFS network. And it's an iterative process. Anybody that's tried to use, I've tried to use DTube a few times. It doesn't work very well for me on larger video sets. When I try to upload like a 5 gig video, 4K, it just dies on the line. It works really well with other smaller video, 720p, 1080p videos. But I mean, that's just an example, just one small example of IPFS as it starts to evolve and get better. Real-time availability. And then we got a lot of questions that come through on not just the, you know, let's talk blockchain in general, ledger, trustless, immutable consensus, right? And then there's an incentivization value if you're holding up that network. If you are putting effort, your coin investment to host and create a node, you know, a distributed node that actually will do the distributed proof of stake piece, or if you're doing a proof of work node, or eventually the eventuality of distributed compute, that also will be getting people out there. And then you have the privacy side stuff that hasn't been answered yet, and we're seeing a lot of the privacy stuff right now. That has to do specifically with, I mean, if you look at the Facebook stuff, there's a big dump right now where you can get what your SMS data that they've been collecting. There's a lot of concern right now in privacy, right? That was part of the discussion out there. And one of the discussions, especially on the blockchain side, both internal with the privatized blockchain solutions that are being looked at right now from a hyperledger and all that, to the cryptocurrency side of the realities of capturing all that history, is the concept in the business world. There's two things. There's one called legal hold, and there's one thing called IM&R, which is information management and retention. And most companies, most public and private companies, have periods of time that they contain information. Financially, there's laws out there, and different countries have different rules, but some are all the way up to like 15 years. They have to keep the data to be able to be brought into a legal hold type of situation. Some other situations you have 3 to 5 years if it's not really pertaining just to some traffic, maybe some log data, that kind of stuff. So if you think of it in the context of storing data on a blockchain, blockchains are like the honey badgers and they don't forget, right? So in that kind of concept, there's an entire discussion that we're going to have to approach at some point collectively as a society, as a global concept of blockchain technology, especially when it comes to the storage of that information, because it is immutable and makes up that chain, of how we're going to address the understanding that certain periods of time are certain periods of time, and that's the legalities of that period of time. Because what happens on the legal side, and this was from a lawyer when I was out there, was anything that's discoverable can be lifted up into the legal process. Meaning, like, if there's an information management and retention policy of 15 years on current corporate data that they go and they delete on purpose or cause shredding because it's 15-year-old data, if something happens 18 years later, if they go and start doing the parsing of that information and then they find that it's discoverable and it happened to go past that date, there's a chance that a law could be changed because they're like, this is too important. It happened 18 years ago, but we have access to the information. So there's an entire concept of privacy that we have to tackle. And that is, something that I think that will be tackled. And right now on the cryptocurrency side, it's just transactions, right? If we really look at it, it's store of value, it's transaction, that sort of thing. So as we start to look at that, the smart contracts, as they start actually doing data related activities, business rule type of activities, there needs to be questions answered on that. And that's like globally in general. But because this problem isn't just a one country thing, it's literally crosses all boundaries. But that was one point that I wanted to bring up, when it came to, not just the crypto side, but, as the laws start to evolve around it. And then we went into kind of the insight data of that. Insights are exactly what essentially is how Facebook and all these different companies will collect information and then create algorithmic views of those, layering essentially over like a data lake of information. And then you can start creating connections that never were originally correlated, right? That position data where I was at is being compared to data of what I maybe purchased versus maybe who I interacted with, and maybe where that information or that exchange happened from. I bought something for somebody, it was here, I had talked to them 10 minutes prior, they made a decision. You can start to string all those different decision trees together in a data lake and then make those available. That would be called insights. That's the layer on top that allows you to get to different information and gives you an insight essentially into a path of potentially cognitive information, right? And I mean, actually, even Watson's technology is considered Watson cognitive, and that's the data insights. Now, none of this I'm taking as a negative context. It's actually enabling a whole bunch of really cool stuff to happen. A lot quicker data sets, a lot quicker response to be able to purchase stuff. There's a lot of benefits, and I think in some people's mind that's a good thing, and that's why a lot of it's went that way. However, there's a huge privacy issue with that we need to be able to know what's being collected, and that transcends very heavily into the blockchain, because the blockchain is the functionality of the connections as the chain is being built is interweaved with that information. You can't go delete it. It's a create in a database, and it continuously creates, and it's bound to the previous information. So as we start to look at a lot of development on the blockchain cryptocurrency side, from being independent developers and committing code to see how that double-edged sword is going to be used. I'm reading some of the comments here. So I have a lot of video, I have pictures and stuff that I had taken at the event. Again, like I said, this was really from a work perspective, but anything that I do, I cross both territories on cryptocurrency and the technology as a solution architect side. So I capture the information on both sides, because I think that we're well ahead of where things are going to be here in the future when we start really interacting and weaving these blockchains together. We start creating the oracles in play that work with the systems of record that are out there. Your different data systems of records that are in the world, that are behind firewalls, that will start to interact with blockchains, and then really start writing an immutable version of that. Where if you have these blockchain, these huge data systems all over the world that capture all sorts of information, like what, between weather data, what happened over the last 10 years, all this different information that's stored in these databases are starting to get connected to blockchain, both private and public networks. Blockchains don't forget, guys. That's the thing, right? Somebody can't go manipulate that chain. It's insanely hard. And it's even like even in the private side, some of the discussions that we had in some of those labs were showing how difficult, like even on a centralized blockchain, so a public chain, private execution to participate in that chain. So you're going to have essentially a pair key to get connected to that chain and make changes to it. to make you could see the transactions that are obfuscated from you, so you don't know who they are, just like Bitcoin, but you see the transactions. But to actually make post of the transactions, make exchanges on those transactions, you have to be part of essentially a group. But then the consensus is split over all the companies that are participating. So if IBM was a creator of it, or some other company was a creator of it, but then you had a whole bunch of supply chain individual nodes that are contributing to that chain, all of their essential nodes are acting essentially like the proof of work, to where they're validating the transactions, and then if one actor on there tries to be bad, it's just that they're not incentivized. The only delta is that there's not essentially a token that's being distributed to help that, to incentivize them. They're actually paying a cloud broker, which was part of my kind of counter playing devil's advocate in those labs with them, saying, isn't that a horrible idea? Why would we go create a private version of that when there's an incentivization package already included in that to incentivize people to participate and give hardware and cycle time and all that kind of stuff to post transactions, to be part of that distributed ledger, to host that. I don't care what you do on it. That's what you do. I mean, that's what you're going to participate in. But it's like running a Ripple node or something like that, right? To where you're incentivized to on a Ripple node, you're not incentivized. But if you're hosting a miner, even if it's not using a lot of effort to do that, you're still incentivized to participate and help keep that ledger very distributed and honest, to validate the transactions. So they from an engineering side understand that architecture. It's more of the technology isn't where it needs to be to facilitate real-time volume of transactions with reference data yet. It's being built. Very simple financial transactions, very point to point. But when you start talking about group, collective accounts, that kind of stuff, it's that development's still being. And then we've seen the pitfalls of non-mature versions of smart contracts that have group pairings of financial value. If you look at the on the public controlled side, right, on the permissionless, anybody can interact with it. When you put a lot of value out there in a smart contract with a multiple participant connection, you see stuff like that somebody can end the contract, and now you have a whole bunch of money that's locked up. Right, so you see that with Ethereum. So that's the penalty for failure through the development phases of it. And so if you think of the commercial world side of it, of the private chains, is really trying to get through the penalty of failures, and it's a lower cost for them to host their own node. But it's inevitable that it makes no sense not to connect all these existing running cryptocurrency networks as part of that ecosystem from a platform side. It was undeniable the whole time I was there that they understand the leverage that plays out, and that it's just cheddar, man. I mean, why would you not take advantage of leveraging that network to facilitate transactions, and then have privatized nodes through blockchain oracles on the back end to create your other part of your canonical document? And part of that's understanding the way a canonical document works in like a middleware. And in the Twitch stream, I'll get into that if we want to get down into the understanding of how basic business process across multiple many-to-many connection businesses work, and how reference data and all that stuff gets pulled into it. But understanding this architecture is valid and vital to understanding what gives cryptocurrency an innate other functional value, not just a speculatory value. Because when we start talking about ramping up these connections, and I'll get into the Twitch stream here right after this one, we'll wrap this one up in here in a few minutes, and we'll move over to Twitch. But understanding that right now the volume side is really predicated on just the financial concepts of it, the financial stores of value, limited supply, all that kind of concept. Not so much the fact that if there was a huge amount of volume of traffic, that the fees associated with that would be compounding very much so, because you'd have potentially millions of participants on that network. if you had an amazing amount of commerce happening on the public chain, both from a data transport level, through Lightning networks and all of that, like we're talking Bitcoin or Monero or any of these other cryptocurrencies, that it would just be facilitating transactions of information that are paying for a fee to partake on the network, right? So now it's decoupled from just being a financial asset. It's actually facilitating a transport layer for the internet that is immutable, and you can go back to it and check, right? So that's where that innovation's coming. That's where what this development discussions that we were talking with cognitive, IBM's AI, the whole machine deep learning phases that are out there, and then that big question on privacy, which is a really super hot topic right now in the space, especially since the Facebook stuff. That, you know, what happens with a shift delete on some of those databases, or a magical fire or something that happens on a database that's centralized, and then that information's gone. So a lot of good questions. Hopefully I can have some of those at least give you a vision of what those answers were. And what we'll do is we'll wrap this one up. I wanted to give you guys a quick 30-minute kind of recap of Vegas. I have an episode that's in process right now. I'm about a quarter of the way through it, taking a lot of those images, pictures, some of the code that I was writing when it came to the AI side, and showing some of those bias models that were out there, the neural networks, and then some of the crossover into some of the blockchain stuff on the Hyperledger side that I was able to interact with, and then really kind of those discussions with getting into the crypto side. That'll come in as an episode form. It'll be about 3 minutes, 4-minute video on that, just taking some of those images and pictures from the Think 2018. But we're going to take this over to Twitch now, and then we can get a little more loose, maybe pull up a rig, play with some stuff, and then I can get to your guys' questions and answers. I haven't answered. I know you guys have been asking some questions and stuff out there, so we can get on there. So if you head over to twitch.tv/bitsbetrippin', I'm going to fire a stream up for that one, and we will get that started. And then I'll answer your questions. I'll be paying attention to your stuff there, and we can do some Q&A and stuff. And I'd like to hear some of your guys' thought on this subject. So let's wrap this one up. Again, Miss BBT's sent it out a couple times. If you're out there, you can come over and join us there, and we'll see you guys over there in a second. Here, let me get this over.